Hello, hello. Welcome back to the podcast, Race for Safe, where we run from toxic into safety. My name is Brittany Owens, and I am your podcast host. I want to thank you all for joining here again. Um, I was under the weather a little bit of the last couple of weeks of 2025, so I do want to apologize for not releasing the next week episode. So thank you for your patience. We're going to move right along, but before we get into episode two, I want to bring something to your attention. If you all do not know me, let me give you a little fun fact about myself. I enjoy writing, so I write down and jot down a lot of notes. I do a lot of journaling. And I want you all to bear with me because I want to make sure that I'm giving you everything that I can to help you move from surviving into thriving. And as we step into a new year, I want to pause for a moment, not to talk about goals or resolutions, but about alignment. A new year doesn't automatically mean a new life. If we're honest, many of us have walked into new seasons carrying old weights, old habits, and old attachments. And God has been showing me that alignment matters more than motivation. This year, I'm not asking God for more. I'm asking Him to make me clearer, purer, to consecrate and cleanse me, more aligned with His will, because purity isn't about perfection, it's about being undivided, giving God my full attention. When our hearts are split, we feel tired, confused, overwhelmed, and unstable. But when we are aligned, there's peace, clarity, and protection. Misalignment often pushes us to look for safety in the wrong places. People's patterns are distractions that can't truly cover us, but alignment with God creates safety. Purity of heart creates peace. So as we move into today's episode, I want to invite you to listen with honesty. Ask God what needs to be aligned, what needs to be released, and what He's calling you to walk in for 2026. Not just inspired, but position. Let go, let God, and let's move forward. In our first episode, we talked about the difference between what's familiar and what's safe. We discussed how toxicity doesn't always look dramatic and how boundaries are about protection, not punishment. And what's familiar versus what's safe could be people, places, things, jobs. Just because home might seem familiar doesn't mean that it didn't have a toxic environment or loving and caring environment, and that doesn't make it safe. A job might to you bring security, but the job environment is full of toxic. So that doesn't mean that that is safe. It is familiar, and you look at it as a way to pay your bills. And also, that last relationship that you just continue to keep running back to just because it's familiar, because you're not used to self love and loving on yourself, you run back to a relationship that may have abused you mentally, physically, emotionally, and you're just sitting in it because it's familiar. That is not safety. So we're going to continue to press forward and pursue safety so that we can start thriving and stop surviving. Tonight, we're going to go deeper because awareness is the first step, but action is where healing begins. So, this episode, episode two, is going to focus on when familiar isn't safe, learning to choose you. I want to talk about why we stay connected to things we already know aren't healthy. And let me say this clearly, you don't stay because you're weak. You stay because at some point in your life, survival requires endurance. Many of us have learned to adapt, how to tolerate, how to hold things together. We become strong out of necessity because it's required of us. But strength that's rooted in survival will eventually cost you all of your peace. Not some of your peace, but all of your peace. This episode is about recognizing that cost and giving yourself permission to choose differently. In order to get a different outcome, you have to do something different. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. And why continue to do the same thing when the result you was getting you does not change? It still leaves you burnt out, tired, and in survival mode. We're going to unlearn those toxic patterns so that we can step into thriving out of surviving. We don't want to survive. We want to live and walk in abundance, wholeness, safety, and security. Familiarity feels safe because it is predictable, even when it hurts. You know what to expect. You know how to navigate the mood shifts. You know how to minimize yourself to avoid conflict. But here's the truth: predictability is not the same as safety. It's not. The cost of staying in familiar but unsafe spaces often looks like emotional exhaustion. You're always thinking, anticipating, managing, fixing, or over functioning. It looks like guilt driven relationships where you feel responsible for other people's emotions, healing, and happiness. It looks like always being the strong one, quietly wishing someone would finally show up for you. Where's my help? When will they recognize me? When will I get my blessing? When is it going to be my turn, right? For someone to serve me. And sometimes the hardest part is that nothing is obviously wrong. There's no clear reason to leave, just a constant feeling that something isn't right. And let me tell you this: you should not have to earn peace. Peace should not be a reward, it should be a baseline. Love should never require self either. And safety is not selfish. Anything that requires you to abandon yourself simply is too expensive because we must first love ourselves and be the best version of ourselves in order to be anything to anyone else. A broken, unhealed person cannot show up in the capacity that they need to show up for to anyone else without first mending their broken pieces. And this is where we apply race to real life. Tonight, we're focusing on the first step to remove. And removal doesn't always mean walking away immediately. Sometimes it starts internally. Removing means stop over explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. So what? They don't get you. You're unique. God designed and created you to be exactly who you are. You are fearfully and wonderfully made in the eyesight of God. Stop over extending to prove your worth. Stop normalizing discomfort just to keep the peace. You disrupt your comfort and step out your comfort zone just to protect others. Ask yourself, what am I tolerating that's draining me? Drop some comments down below in the chat and share with me what it is that you're tolerating that's draining you. Also, let me know, what are you afraid would happen if you stop showing up this way? Whatever is draining you, if you let it go, if you remove it and you stop showing up for the way in the way that people want you to show up, what would happen? The worst that can happen is they'll exit out your life voluntarily and you will have more time to love on you. Give yourself self love, self care, so that you can be whole and be able to show up in the best version of yourself for the new relationships, the God ordained relationships that He has in store for you. Not just your spouse or dating, but even for your home, even for your children. You can't be all that you can be when you are lacking loving yourself. And I can't express that enough. Self love is top priority for 2026. Put yourself first. You don't have to have all the answers yet. You don't. Awareness is still progress. Now, I do want to open the space for reflection and questions. You can ask questions, share your thoughts, or just listen. Some questions I want you to think about this week before we jump into episode 3 are going to be: what feels familiar but unsafe in your life right now? Write it down, journal it. What would choosing yourself actually look like? Putting you first, not out of selfish will, but because I need to fix me. I need to spend time with me. And what makes letting go feel so scary? What are some things you know you need to let go of? Relationships, environments, jobs, habits, whatever it is that you need to let go. And why is it so scary? Why is it so hard? There is no pressure to share more than you're comfortable with. This is a safe space, but I do encourage you to please drop comments down below in the chat. You are also more than welcome to inbox me or message me on my email, which I will also drop down in the comment section for you all. So, as we close tonight, I want to remind you of this. You do not need permission to choose safety. You are not wrong for wanting peace. You deserve peace. Peace is where love abides. Love is where peace abides. You have to have peace. And healing begins the moment you stop betraying yourself. Thank you for showing up, for listening, and for being willing to do the work. If this episode have resonated with you, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and invite someone else for the next episode who may need to hear this message. Up next week, we will talk about how to close doors without guilt and how to stay free once you do. Until then, stop surviving, start living. It's time to race from safe. Where you run from toxic into safety. I'm your girl, Brittany Owens, and I'll see you again next week.